Fiscal policy. There are two main ways for the government to manage the economy: fiscal policy and monetary policy. This video is about fiscal policy. Another one discusses monetary policy. Fiscal policy relates to government decisions about taxation and spending. Just like a person or a family, the government needs to make sure that its spending is in line with its income, or if it is not, then there is a budget deficit that needs to be covered through borrowing. The government earns money mainly by collecting different types of taxes such as income tax, sales tax, and corporate tax. It then spends money on different services, including the police, healthcare, and education. The government also spends money on transfer payments to the unemployed, retired, and others. And there is government investment in projects like bridges and airports. A government is able to have a big impact on the economy through its fiscal policy. The decisions it makes will depend on where the economy is in the business cycle. If there is a recession and unemployment is high, a government can stimulate the economy and increase aggregate demand by increasing spending or reducing taxes. This is called an expansionary fiscal policy. If the government increases spending or reduces taxes, then additional money ends up in people's pockets. Most of this money will be spent and ends up with other people who also spend it, and so on. So, the impact of an expansionary policy is much greater than the initial increase in spending or tax cut because the extra money is spent several times. This is referred to as the multiplier effect. The less money people save, the greater will be the multiplier effect of an expansionary fiscal policy. On the other hand, reductions in government spending or increases in taxation are contractionary policies that have the opposite effect. They reduce aggregate demand in an economy. If the economy is already running at or near full capacity, then the increased government spending will not stimulate the economy, but will only lead to inflation. If the government invests money on new projects and there are no resources available, then the resources will need to be diverted from other activities, and government investment is just replacing private investment. This is called the crowding out effect. Governments can run budget deficits nearly all the time, so they keep on borrowing money. People usually consider lending to governments as a safe investment, and this allows most countries to borrow at low interest rates. The size of the government debt may look huge, but the debt and the annual interest payments need to be put in the context of the size of the economy, as measured by gross domestic product or GDP. If the economy is large in comparison to the budget deficit and the government debt, then there is not really a problem with the government running budget deficits. As an example, the rules for countries in the Eurozone say that the budget deficit should not be higher than 3% of GDP, and the total government debt should be no more than 60% of GDP. Not all Eurozone countries comply with these rules, and there are good arguments to say that in a recession. Governments need to stimulate the economy by running large budget deficits. That concludes the intro to fiscal policy. Check our other videos for more insights. Brought to you by Sim Institute.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. We are from Group 4 and we are going to present our case study on topic fiscal policy. My name is Wandalila Akmal binti Sukiman, and the rest of my member is Nurhana binti Makna Zain, Nuran Amali binti Zabidi, and the last one is Nur Najwa Akilah binti Basli. So let's start.
Introduction. Fiscal policy refers to the use of government spending and tax policy to influence economic conditions, especially macroeconomic conditions. There is considerable debate over the understanding of fiscal policy on economic growth, especially in developing countries. One view is suggest incumbent in government spending are justified by the low productivity and the efficiency of government expenditure, and the high welfare cost of starvation and zakat.
What is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is how governments adjust spending and tax rates to control and influence a country's economy. Fiscal policy is a economic policy to direct the economic conditions to be better by changing the revenue and expenditure of the government. Fiscal policy can be defined as the use of government taxing, borrowing, and spending to influence the level of economic activity. It refers to the strategies and actions taken by governments regarding their spending, taxation, and borrowing to influence the economy's overall performance and achieve specific socio-economic goals. Essentially, it's about how government manage their money to shape the economic environment. The general objective of fiscal policy is to influence the aggregate demand side of the economy in the short run, and it can also influence the supply side of the economy over the longer run by increasing the capacity of the economy. The way governments manage their spending and taxes comes in different types, each serving a unique purpose in stabilizing the economy. There are two types of fiscal policy, which are expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. First, expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy is used to combat recession or unemployment. Its mechanism includes increasing the amount of government expenditure, reducing the amount of taxation levied, or a combination of both. Number 2, contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy is used to cool down an overheating economy and thus avoid excessive inflation. Its mechanism works in the opposite direction of the expansionary policy. Contractionary policy increases taxes and reduces government spending. By adjusting their fiscal policies, governments can strive to maintain stability and balance in the economy, ensuring it operates smoothly and efficiently over time. Next, functions of fiscal policy. There are few functions of fiscal policy. First, allocation. One of the major functions of fiscal policy is to decide on how government funds are allocated. This is related to taxation and public spending because resource allocation ultimately depends on the amount of tax collection and how the government intends to utilize those tax revenues. Second, distribution. While the allocation function determines how much funds are set aside for various uses and purposes, the distribution function of fiscal policy governs how those funds are distributed within their allocations throughout the economy. Distribution basically provides a detailed account of the nature of the allocations that were intended for. Third, stabilization. Stabilization provides stable economic growth along with stability in price levels and employment. Without some restriction on public spending, the growth of the nation could become volatile, leading to uncontrolled growth or decline for many periods. Lastly, goals of fiscal policy. The goals of fiscal policy are like the compass guiding a government's financial decisions to steer the economy towards certain destinations. Here are some goals of fiscal policy. First, economic growth. When the economy is booming, business tend to flourish and people would generally earn more. All this tends to increase the overall prosperity of the nation and in turn improve the welfare of individuals. Second, employment. Employed workers normally have more money to spend than their unemployed counterparts. The unemployed tends to hamper economic growth. Lastly, economic stability. Stability refers to controlling or lessening of values in the economy, particularly in prices and wages. That's all from me.
Next, government expenditure. First, change in government spending are the main component of fiscal policies used to stabilize the macroeconomic business cycle, which is creating future benefits such as infrastructure investment or research expenditure as a government investment. Second, recurring things to survive such as pension, healthcare, security, education subsidies, emergency survive infrastructure. Infrastructure is the maintained or improved asset. Third, public welfare must have financial incentive by undertaking programs among the eliminating poverty and providing support. Have a effect which is government spending has been overused, which can affect the domestic economy to raising tax and high government borrowing. Okay, next. 5. By investing the infrastructure project and public service, government can create jobs, increase demand for goods and services, and boost the economy. Tend to be increased review and usage for economy. C. It also for economic stability and development by securing careful management to avoid potential vulnerabilities such as inflation, fiscal deficit, and deficiencies. Because of that, government must have effective strategic planning in essential to maximize the positive impact of government. 7. High level of debt may decrease higher future tax or reduce spending, which could lead to curbing economic growth. Therefore, the government responsibility to make interest payment. 8. The government needs to prioritize transparency, accountability, and effective management to ensure that public expenditure to be provide maximum benefit and support sustainable economy. Thank you.
The next is taxation. Tax is one of government's revenue. It is the process where government imposes financial charge on individuals, businesses, and other entities. So these charges are distributed on government activity such as education, healthcare, defense, and social welfare activities. Basically, there are two types of taxes. First one is direct tax. Direct tax are imposed on people or organization directly. The target of the tax pay the tax directly to the government. So usually the taxpayers' wealth or income determine how much of this tax they pay. So for example of the direct tax is income tax, corporate tax, stamp duty, and property tax. The second one is indirect tax. The indirect tax is the tax that are levied on good or service directly. So, for example of the indirect tax is GST and VAT. Reality tax in Malaysia, which is our group, choose GST. GST stands for Good and Services Tax. It is consumption tax with a broad base. It is imposed on every purchase of taxable good at all supply chain stage, including manufacture, wholesale, retail, and production. For your information, over 120 countries are currently using GST, so they are paid by consumer at the time of purchase. When purchasing materials, equipment, or services to operate their business, all businesses are required to pay GST. The charge of GST on output tax will be deducted on input tax. So consumers are responsible to pay GST on product they purchase. For your information, GST has been challenging for customers and businesses to be sufficiently prepared to the length of the debate and extensive discussion of the proposal's possible benefits and drawbacks. According to Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, over 60% of companies were unprepared for GST. They worry that GST would influence financial reporting and strategic decision-making difficulties such as pricing, particularly in the small and medium-sized firms community. The establishment of GST is aimed to increase tax collection while also decreasing the country widening budget imbalance. Among the numerous variables contributing to the GST postponement, small and medium-sized businesses' lack of preparedness is primary one. A growing number of companies are realizing how difficult it is to prepare for GST. Even if the GST has not yet put into force, businesses nevertheless anticipate greater upfront costs, particularly for setting up an efficient information system and assembling a trained team to handle GST. GST can contribute a big impact on social economy. First one, is price inflation. Even though the mechanism proposed by the government enabled the producer to reclaim the GST they paid from the government, the producer often decide to shift the cost directly to the consumer since they claim to sustain their capital turnover. They say the process of doing is so complex and time-consuming to their disadvantage. In the end, the consumer therefore suffer double taxation costs since they pay to tax on the behalf of the producer as well as on their own. This indirectly become a factor of price high accompanied by the responsibility of the seller and producer that simply increase the price without a proper reason. Second one is complexity of the system. GST is hard to implement unless with the allocation of massive costs, advanced technology, and the electronic communication system. It means that the execution of GST is very expensive to both revenue authority and business sector. The mechanism of GST system, GST refund system might be an opportunity to the corruption and unethical business to exploit weaknesses in the system. Indirect tax is regressive in nature, especially for GST. This is because the tax is levied on a flat rate across all levels of income, including the item that the poor need to buy. Price inflation hit the poor the hardest. The last one is the power of civil servant. Those who hold ministerial positions are powerless to reduce and manage inflation. For instance, when the removal of a subsidy on white bread resulted in price increase of up to 30% of per loaf. The Deputy of Domestic Trade Cooperative and Consumer Affairs Minister commented that price adjustments was unnecessary, urged the companies to practice their welfare policies (CSR) and urged the consumer to exercise the customer power. This kind of statement is useless against profiteering problem. The public want the government to concern about their social well-being, not giving up smart statement like this.
Before I present on my part, let me introduce my name first. My name is Nur Najwa Akilah binti Basli, and now I will present about the difference between zakat and tax. Okay, as we all know, there are several aspects that showing the difference between zakat and tax. Okay, so first, zakat is from of the Muslim obedience to religious teaching, and amount of zakat has been determined in the Quran and Hadith. While tax are the obedience of a citizen to the policies of the state. Okay, next I will define about zakat. Zakat is one of the most important thing in our life as a Muslim. It will do in our life. It also can remove attachment from the world and connect with Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Also, the poor as well as purify our wealth, which is the term of zakat in Arabic word that mean purify. This means that giving zakat purify our wealth. Also, it can sources of immense barakah or blessing. It's also obligatory on every Muslim. As you all know, zakat have a two types. First, zakat fitrah and zakat harta. Okay, first, zakat fitrah. Zakat fitrah is a personal zakat that is obligatory on every individual Muslim, man and also woman. Okay, who can afford it under the prescribed condition. Okay, next, zakat harta. Zakat harta is on a property that include agriculture produce, livestock, business, saving, farm property, gold and also silver. Okay, so each property, that calculation of the estimate of the property that will be subject to zakat. Next, I will define the tax. Tax is a mandatory payment or charge collected by a local, state, and also national government from individuals and also businesses to cover the cost of general government, service, good, and also activities. Tax can be levied in two ways, which is directly or indirectly. A direct tax is levied on individuals and organizations and cannot be shifted to another payer. As I said before, tax can be levied in two ways. A direct tax is levied in individuals and organizations and cannot be shifted to another payer. With a direct tax, such as the individual income, rates often the increase as the taxpayer ability to pay increase, resulting in what is called a progressive tax. Okay, unlike direct tax, indirect tax are levied on goods and service, not individual payers, and are collected by the retailer or manufacturer. At last is indirect tax. Indirect tax is imposed on one person or group, then shift to be a different payer, usually the consumer. So all the countries have a tax system in place in order to pay for the public common societal or agree national needs and for the function of government. So some countries have a levy a flat percentage rate of the taxation on the personal annual income, but most of scale tax are the progressive based on bracket annual income amount. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, government expenditure is a powerful tool in fiscal policy for managing economic performance. By carefully planning and implementing spending measures, governments can stimulate growth, reduce unemployment, and control inflation, contributing to overall economic stability and prosperity. However, the effectiveness of government expenditure in fiscal policy depends on efficient allocation, monitoring, and coordination with other policies. Proper management and strategic allocation of resources are essential for achieving desired economic outcomes and maintaining fiscal health, or balancing spending with revenue. Ensuring transparency and targeting expenditures effectively are key to maximizing the benefits of government expenditure while minimizing economic risks. That's all from us. Thank you.